These days, we hear so much about sustainable this and low impact that it's easy to lose the meanings of these terms in all the noise of our fast-paced, informational cycling modern world. And after all, sustainable living has become such a marketing buzzword that while many of us can define it academically or even idealistically in terms of its goals, we might not understand what it exactly means from a practical standpoint. I mean, what does a sustainable or sustainable-ish life actually look like? Well, today I'm here to show you. Hey everyone, I'm Amber from Sustainable Jungle, where we share sustainability tips, tricks, hacks, products, brands, and stories to better our planet. And today, rather than telling you about a lot of these things, I'm going to actually show you by taking you on a journey through a usual day in my own life and all the things that I do to lessen my impact wherever I can. Now, keep in mind that sustainable living looks a little bit different to everyone. What works for me here in my tiny house on my micro Wyoming homestead is not going to work for everyone. Just as what works for you living in an urban high-rise apartment probably wouldn't really work for me. The point is that to show you how, with a little bit of conscious and creative thinking, you can infuse sustainability-focused actions into your everyday routine. And if you happen to glean some ideas from me here today, fantastic. So without further ado, let's hop to it. So this is me. I live in a 400 square foot tiny house. It is on wheels on a trailer, so think HGTV, and that's kind of the space that I am working with, that I live in my day-to-day life. The first thing I do after I wake up in the morning is, of course, brew some coffee, which I have to start doing by filtering some water for it. Now, we use reverse osmosis or RO filtered water for everything that we drink, just because it filters out any chlorine or any nasties that you find in your tap water, and we love it. We think it tastes great. After that, I fresh grind my beans, because I use the French press method, which I love not only because it makes a much stronger cup of coffee, but also because it is completely zero waste. Now, the one downside to French press coffee is that it does take 15 to 20 minutes of steeping in order to brew it to the proper strength, but I use the time to do a little bit of morning chores like laundry. Of course, when I put the laundry in, I only use natural and non-toxic laundry detergent like this from Meliora. At this point, the laundry that I put in the morning has been washed, so I'm going to take that outside and I hang it out on the line in my yard. I do use a dryer in the winter time when it's too cold and damp to be able to dry things outside where I live, but in the summer I never turn my dryer on. And then after my coffee is ready, I take my cup and my laptop and I go sit outside and do a couple hours of work in the morning while I sip away at my coffee. Especially in the summertime, I love to take advantage of as much outside time as possible, and in the morning especially, I try to get that morning light exposure just to help regulate my circadian rhythm. Once it starts getting a little bit too hot to sit outside and work, I will take a break and do some of my daily chores, which starts off with feeding my quail. Yes, quail. I raise quail, but given where I live, I can't really have the space to have chickens. So instead, I decided to raise quail, which they are very adorable little birds. They lay eggs every single day, just like chickens do, and that helps me be more self-sufficient with my food. Speaking of food self-sufficiency, after that I move on to tending my garden. Now, I do have 2 raised garden beds at my house, so I start in the morning by weeding these, harvesting anything that needs harvesting, kind of just performing general maintenance. I do use exclusively organic practices, which means I don't use any herbicides to prevent weeds, so if I can stay on top of hand weeding throughout the year by doing a little bit every day, it's hugely helpful. Next, I head inside, and first I clean my coffee press, by which case I mean composting the grounds. I do have a dual-chambered home compost tumbler, which is how I deal with all of my own food and garden waste. And then I move on to making breakfast. So on this particular day, I actually need to make more sourdough bread, so I'm going to take my sourdough discard and save that so that I can use it to make sourdough pancakes. I know a lot of people don't like making sourdough because of all the discard waste, but there's actually a lot of recipes that you can use to utilize that, so I pretty much never end up throwing any of that away. Because I grow a lot of different crops in my garden and have a pretty prolific harvest every year, I try to use the entire summer to make and preserve things, so that way I don't have as much work to do at the end of the season, and also so that I can waste as little food as possible. So after breakfast, I'm pretty much almost always either making preserves, or in this case, making a rhubarb crumble, just to keep kind of doing that throughout the entire season. And then the not so fun part of all that, cleaning up. But I do try to clean a little bit every day after I cook so that it never becomes a really messy chore. So here I'm using a refillable and all-natural all-purpose cleaning spray from Common Good, and my favorite cellulose dishcloth, which is completely reusable to wipe down my counters, and then I can just wash it out and reuse once I'm done. Then I move on to my mid-morning workout. Yes, my tiny house also doubles as a gym. I don't pay for a gym membership. I do everything that I need right here at home. That includes usually starting with a little bit of yoga flow to limber up my body, doing some pull-ups on the hangboard, doing some free weights, and then doing a lot of calisthenics. And this is a great way to maintain my health without taking up a bunch of space with equipment or wasting money on a gym membership. And of course, I like using my non-toxic yoga mat. Here I'm using a Cork one by Scoria so that I know I'm not breathing in any toxic chemicals during my workout. Next, it's time to shower and get ready, which I keep super simple and clean with a pretty minimal set of products. So for my shower, I use a shampoo bar, which I also double as body wash. I use a zero waste safety razor to shave, and then of course I use apple cider vinegar, but only about once a week just as a clarifying conditioner. I actually don't use conditioner anymore. If I'm not using the apple cider vinegar once a week, I just use the shampoo bar, and that's all. After that, I just put on a little bit of under eye balm and some Precious Oils Active Infusion from Activist Skincare to keep my skin hydrated and protected throughout the day, spritz on a little bit of non-toxic perfume, and brush my teeth using some zero waste toothpaste tablets, and I am ready to go for the day. So now it's time to get back to some work. So if you haven't guessed by now, I do work from home, which is amazing because it allows me a lot of flexibility to do these things in different blocks throughout my day. And again, I do prefer working outside when the weather is nice, so at this point, I'll take my chair from the sunny side of the house over to the shady side of our yard and do another couple of hours of work there. Next, it's time to head inside for lunch, but before I get to cooking, I do have to tend my sourdough. So if you'll remember this morning, I started a new batch of sourdough, which I do about twice a week, give or take a little bit. And throughout the day, that means I need to do some sets of stretches and folds while the dough is proofing and rising. So I'm going to do that before I start cooking lunch. For lunch, I'm going to fry up some quail eggs as well as take some other fresh harvested things from my garden like garlic scapes, herbs, and green onions and make one of my favorite Korean dishes, yerenbap, which is basically just egg rice. It's super easy, super wholesome, and made of completely whole foods. Now, it's also worth noting that I never throw away food waste, not even the eggshells, and I eat eggs every single day. But instead of even composting them, I actually save them in little containers, and then about once a week, I bake them in the oven, dry them out, and then grind them up and feed them back to my birds for an additional calcium supplement, which is good for them and means I have absolutely zero eggshell waste. Yet another thing that I make at home, because again, making things myself rather than buying them is a huge way that I really try to be more sustainable, is kombucha. I have been brewing kombucha at home for almost 4 years now. So after I'm done with lunch, I'm going to check the bottles that I've had in the second fermentation stage for a few days and burp them to check if they're not carbonated enough or too carbonated. As you can see, this one was a little bit too carbonated. And then I'm going to move them into the fridge to stop that fermentation and take one glass out to sit outside and just relax for a few minutes. Next, it's time to move on to my other job. So when I'm not doing work for Sustainable Jungle, I actually do own my own upcycled crafting business where I take retired climbing ropes specifically and upcycle them into functional new homewares like can cozies, bowls, collages, whatever essentially that means these ropes aren't going to waste. So I usually take a couple hours in the afternoon to do some work in that business, just prepping some items, making sure that all of our Etsy orders are fulfilled, and doing anything that I need to do on that front. Now, my home gardens are actually only a fraction of the total garden space I have. I am also a member and including a board member of our local community garden, which is an amazing resource for people that are looking to get into growing things and maybe don't have the space at home to do so. So I usually like to check on that about every day or every other day. So I will take my bike, ride down to the community garden as it's only about a mile away, and check on things there. This particular evening, I noticed that all of my garlic was ready to harvest, so I dug that up and had a wonderful garlic crop for the year. Now, our community garden is great because it is irrigated, so that means I don't actually have to go there to water it, except for to check when it gets really hot if it needs a little extra water. My home garden, not so much, so I do have to water that by hand every single day, which I try to do in the evenings after the sun is starting to go down, as this is a more eco-friendly and efficient way to do it. Otherwise, the water evaporates off, which means it's not as efficient to your plants, and you're going to be wasting more water on the whole. Now, once I'm done watering, but before I actually go inside, I am going to harvest a few things from the garden to use for dinner, specifically some kale and some spring mix. And I'm going to make a big salad. Now, worth noting, I am not vegan, but I am a firm believer in supporting sustainable agriculture when it comes to animals, which is why I raise my own quail. And when it comes to chicken that I'm going to put on the salad, I do shop for exclusively organic pasture-raised things from as local of dealers as possible. And I also am going to make my own salad dressing so that I know exactly what's in it. There's going to be no seed oils, and it's just 3 ingredients. And in the end, I have a delicious summer fresh salad. Once I'm done with dinner, I'm going to go back out and check on the birds, make sure that all my quail have enough water, enough food, give them any snacks that they might need, and then collect all of the eggs that they have laid throughout the day. And then last but certainly not least, I'm going to take the last little bit of the evening to just wind down and either read a book or do some hand embroidery, which is my all-time favorite hobby, as I sit there and maybe watch something with my partner before I go to bed and start the day all over again. So that's the gist of my day to day. Now, does every single day of my life look as sustainable as this? Nope. Are there flaws in this routine and ways that I can continue to improve? 100%, because I'm human and no one in the world can be perfectly sustainable. But as we always say here at SJ, progress trumps perfection. It's about doing what you can and striving to be better rather than getting it completely right from the beginning. So take it slow. Adopt 1 or 2 new habits a week and incorporate more as you're able to do so and you get comfortable doing them. That's exactly what I did, because trust me, my life did not always look nearly as sustainable as this. So be gentle with yourself and have fun in the process. Now, turning it over to you. Let me know what you do on the daily to reduce your own impact. Did you see anything here that you plan on trying out? Do you have any suggestions for me that I can try out? I'd love to hear them, so please put your thoughts into the comments below. And before you go, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel so you can stay in the know on a bunch more videos like this. Thanks for spending the day with me, folks, and have a wonderful rest of yours. This is Amber from SJ.